mankind. And then you have Tigerland and other unintended destinations. And there you actually, I think, bring in a few people that were unlikely people to become part of a movement. Somebody that from the woman from the country herself. Then I think you brought somebody that was a grant person with you on one of your journeys.
A woman who was a housewife who
was a zoologist or something.
Had a passion for snow leopards and became the world's leading snow leopard conservationist, who I went with to look for snow leopards in northern India and set up the first wild study of snow leopards in that country. And she was a great crusader and a remarkable individual who made a huge difference for a species. And I think it's often said that one person can make a big difference, and that was certainly an example of that.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. Your books may be more, not more scientific in nature, but they are. Storytelling, a journal. I mean, I imagine because of the work you do, you're always recording. You're always having to, document and give validation or substantiate information to create a change, or let's structurally go into this community and make sure water, paths are for the animals and things like that. So, and then you have the return of the unicorn. And that's about the one-horned
greater one-horned rhinoceros.
Yes, and you've done a lot of work in that area. And that seemed like an amazing. I said to myself, do you ever pinch yourself, because you have kind of a life that movies could be made of, but you do it on a daily basis. This is who you are. And I also today came to me, and you can answer this any way you want, to have a job and a mission like you do, where there has to be patience, but there has to be urgency, because you have to patiently gather all this and be amongst this, but the urgency of what we as human beings need to do on the planet. What is it like to have to kind of walk that path? That's not an easy path, to be urgent and patient and, persevere. So,
well, when I came back from Nepal after my first year, so I came back to school, graduate school from the Peace Corps, and then I went to the University of Washington. I wanted to go back to Asia and study elephants or tigers or some of the prey species of tigers, but it didn't work out, so I ended up with a great alternative. I studied tropical fruit bats in Costa Rica for my PhD, so I learned all about tropical biology, which was fantastic. But then I got this opportunity to go back for 5 years and work with the Smithsonian to study rhinos and tigers in a different park in Nepal. After my first year, I went back to graduate school to give a talk and greet some of my professors. And my major professor at the University of Washington said, "Eric, what are the 2 things that we did not teach you in graduate school that you find indispensable in your job now?" And without hesitating, I said, "Diplomacy and patience." Because if you're working in a foreign country and you're not patient, no one is going to respect you, because you're going to be uttering suggestions that are inappropriate, and you have to understand how to interact in that culture to achieve your goals. You have to make things first as a question, like, what do you think about this, as opposed to, you should be doing this. Nobody nobody wants to hear that.
Right.
And so learning that is not something that you're taught in graduate school. So that was a real eye-opener for me. But as to your question of this balancing patience and urgency, it's true that right now we are living through the 6th great extinction crisis in the history of our planet. Now, the other 5 that have occurred were, like, for example, the one which spelled the end of the dinosaurs. All of the other 5 happened without human beings present on the Earth. This is the one that has our fingerprints on it. And so it's most urgent, because we are at a point now where, unless things change, we are going to suffer the severe effects of climate change, and we're going to see the extinction of a vast number of species. Those are the two great challenges we face. And so that is part of the reason why I wrote this novel, is I wanted to reach the younger generation who are going to inherit some of the mess, but also will be part of the solution, because I am very optimistic that
Right.
we are going to come out of this, but we need to accelerate our pace
We got to
right
get
now.
busy.
Yeah.
So we have only 2 or 3 minutes left, so I'm not taking any more offerings, but let's talk a little bit more about this wonderful book, and it's got a great character, you know, and wonderful other characters. We have a young boy in this book who is originally, supposedly at 2 years old, left and raised by wild dogs, and then comes upon the emperor's, I keep wanting to say stable, but that's not what it's called.
King.
The king's stable of elephants. And so his father becomes the head driver or leader of the elephants, and an elephant is his mother.
So he adopts the young boy, the orphan,
Right.
and he assigns him to an elephant who becomes like his surrogate mother.
Right. And then he is put to a test because these elephants run the risk of no longer being.
The threat in the book is that the stable may close because
Right, and
it's a
then-
poor country that can't afford to keep them
Right.
all, and he comes up with a plan to save it. And so it's really a coming of age story that I think, even though it's set in the jungle, that any child or a young person could relate to, of
Right.
like being an outcast in the world and trying to find your place in it. And this character does it through his reverence for nature and his love of wildlife and the love of the elephants. And that's how he finds where he belongs.
Right. And he has